A long time ago, in the heart of a small village called Anyama, a young girl named Ezine was known for her habit of borrowing. She borrowed everything from food to clothes, shoes, bags, earrings, and even down to underwear. Her friends, neighbors, and entire village had grown tired of her habit. But despite her habit of borrowing, she was loved by the villagers for her kind heart and generous spirit. However, her constant habit of borrowing was a source of frustration for those around her. It had become so bad that Ezine hardly asked for permission anymore. She would just take things belonging to her friends and neighbors without asking, assuming that they would just give it to her. Her friends had become so frustrated with that attitude. Often, they would find things missing in their houses without any recollection of lending them to Ezine. Her very close friends have spoken to her about it and encouraged her to drop the habit, but she found it hard to stop. Ezine had first cultivated the habit of borrowing when her parents died. Maazi Udo and Nkoli were rich merchants. Her parents had died in a car accident when they were on a trip to Onitsha to buy goods. Ezine grew up with a silver spoon. She had everything and lacked nothing. After their death, her wicked uncle Nebe had taken everything her father owned and sent her all the way from Enugu to the village to live with her grandmother. While she lived with her granny, she stopped attending school because her uncle was not sending money to her grandmother. Nne Ugo was a petty trader. She reached out to her son Nebe so many times, but her son had simply abandoned them. Nne Ugo and her granddaughter had managed a living with her petty trade and borrowing, of course. Ezine was 16 years old when her grandma died. She made a living with her grandma's petty trade and borrowing most of the time. She had been friends with Nnamdi since she was 8 years old. Nnamdi always teased her by saying she was his wife. Even now that they are young adults, he still calls her my wife. He had openly disapproved of her habit of borrowing. It was so bad that one time they had a fight and didn't speak to each other for months. When they reconciled, Ezine promised not to borrow anymore, but apparently she is one to hardly drop a bad habit. Her best friend was Njideka. They had been friends since Ezine came to live with her grandmother, Nne Ugo. Nne never approved of their relationship. She said her spirit did not approve of their friendship. She never gave Ezine any reason, so their friendship continued. Unbeknownst to Ezine, her friend Njideka was a petty thief, but only her family knew about it. Plus, she had never been caught in the act, so her parents tried everything in their power to see that she hardly gets the opportunity to commit the act. One of Ezine's friends, Ako, was to get married. She was to attend the wedding, but she had nothing to wear, so she paid Njideka a visit to see if she could borrow a dress from her. When she got to her friend's house, she met her mother outside with a visitor, Mama Ndidi. Mama Ndidi owned a stall in the market where she sold female clothes. She was complaining about a missing item. I only bought 3 of those dresses and I sold 2. I was going to keep the third one for Ndidi, but someone must have stolen it from my shop, because I am very sure I did not sell that dress. Ezinne greeted Mama Njideka and Mama Ndidi. Ezigbo nwa, kedu? She asked. Nne ya dị m mma. Otito dịrị Chukwu, oh, your friend is inside. Go and see her. Yes, Mama, replied Ezinne. As she walked into the house, she caught her friend eavesdropping on her mother's conversation. Why are you peeping through the window? She asked. Njideka laughed nervously, like someone who's been caught in the act. How are you preparing for Ako's wedding tomorrow? She asked. How else can I prepare? I am not the one getting married tomorrow. All I have to do is get myself to the event. Both of them laughed. Then, more seriously, Njideka said, Is Nnamdi coming? Yes, replied Ezinne, and that brings me to the reason why I am here. I don't have anything to wear to the wedding. Mm-hmm, Njideka said jokingly. How can I help you? Ezinne put her hands together in a plea. Please, can I borrow a dress from you? Ezinne, you promised to stop borrowing. I know, but this situation is different. Seriously, Ezinne, you have to stop. You promised you will. I know, but the situation calls for it. See, I promise, after this, I'm done. Please, Ezinne said. You're my best friend, and you know I can't say no to helping you. But this habit is not a good one. You need to stop. I promise. One last time, said Ezinne, because it is important. Besides, I want to look good for my husband, Nnamdi. At that statement, Ezinne and her friend burst out laughing. Fine, said Njideka, just one last time. She went to her bag and brought out two dresses and asked her friend to pick one. Ezinne took the first one and tried it. It looked good on her, but she didn't like how it fit. So she tried the second one, which she preferred. She was asking her friend what she thought of the fit on her, but apparently Njideka was not paying attention. She was lost in her thoughts. Njideka, she called out. Njideka looked up. Oh, I'm so sorry, I was thinking of something. This looks okay, but just wait a minute, I have something else for you. She took out another dress from her bag. It was a beautiful blue dress. Aha! Exclaimed Ezinne. Oh my God, this is so beautiful and it looks new. Yes, it is new. You will be the first person to wear it and you're going to pay me for that. Both girls laughed and then more seriously, Ezinne said, So why are you letting me borrow a brand new dress? Something you've never used. You're my best friend, replied Njideka. Besides, it's a special occasion and I want Nnamdi's eyes to be on you all day. Both girls laughed and then Ezinne took the dress and left. The next day, she got dressed and left for the ceremony. Her friends were all there, Nnamdi too. He loved the dress on her and asked how much it had cost. She hesitated a bit, and that made Nnamdi frown in suspicion. Is it borrowed? He asked. You promised not to borrow anymore. Nnamdi. So does it mean that everything I own is now borrowed? She asked, pretending to be upset. Did you borrow the dress, Ezinne? Please tell me the truth. No, Nnamdi. It is not borrowed. It is mine. She said that with so much assurance that Nnamdi believed her. The wedding ceremony went on. As guests started to go congratulate the couple, Ezinne went along to congratulate her friend Ako. When she was done, she went back to her seat. A few minutes later, Ndidi came to say hello. They were not friends, but they were always polite to each other. Your dress is beautiful, said Ndidi. Thanks, replied Ezinne. Did you buy it, or did a tailor make it for you? I bought it, replied Ezinne. It's very beautiful, Ndidi continued. Thanks, Ezinne replied again, eager to put an end to the conversation. Ndidi was obviously not about to do that, so she continued. How much did you buy the dress? I can't remember how much I bought it, Ndidi. Really? Ndidi said in amazement. I find that very hard to believe, being that this is a new dress and you obviously bought it recently. By this time, Nnamdi had started to pay attention to the girls, trying to understand what was going on. Then he said, Ndidi, she said she can't remember how much she bought it, so just let it go. Never, said Ndidi. As a matter of fact, I am going to get my mother. For what? Nnamdi asked, perplexed. At this point, Ezinne had become confused. She couldn't really explain her situation, as she had already lied to Nnamdi that the dress was hers. She got up and started to walk away, but it was already too late for her. Mama, said Ndidi, take a good look at this dress. Does it not look like your dress? Her mother said, finishing her daughter's statement. This is the exact same dress I wanted to bring home for you, but it was stolen. Stolen? Nnamdi and Ezinne exclaimed at the same time. I don't understand, said Nnamdi. Some of the guests have already started to mumble as they paid attention to their conversation. Ezinne, said Nnamdi, tell them from whom you bought the dress and how much. Ezinne put her face down and said nothing. Nnamdi repeated his statement and Ezinne still said nothing. Nne, please, said Nnamdi. I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. I am certain that it's possible for two people to own the same dress. I mean, you're not the only person who sells this particular dress. I know, said Mama Ndidi, but I can identify the particular dress. I had 3 of them, sold 2, but couldn't sell this one because it had a hole in the right armpit. So I gave it to a tailor who unfortunately patched it with a black material instead of blue. Mama Ndidi lifted Ezinne's right arm to reveal the spot she was describing. Everyone who was paying attention to the conversation exclaimed at the same time at the discovery. They started calling Onyoshi, hey, thief, Onyoshi, disrupting the wedding ceremony. Thankfully, the band was playing, so a good number of people were not aware. But as the chanting got louder and more people started to pay attention, a woman suggested to take Ezinne to the king's palace. By this time, Ezinne was crying and trying to explain to the people that the dress was borrowed and not stolen. She asked some people to call Njideka to explain, but Njideka was nowhere to be found. Apparently, she had left the scene. She tried to ask Nnamdi for help, but Nnamdi said nothing. He just stood there, disappointed, and watched as they took her away. When they got to the king's palace, the king asked her to explain how the dress got in her possession. She explained, saying that the dress did not belong to her, that she had borrowed it from her best friend Njideka. The king summoned Njideka and her parents to the palace. Njideka denied her friend and said she had never seen the dress before, that it belonged to Ezinne. There was no way Ezinne could defend herself. So Njideka had borrowed her a stolen dress. Nne had warned her about her relationship with Njideka before she died. She had told her to break off the friendship, that she would get in trouble one day. Now she understood Nne's premonition. She looked around, trying to see if she could catch a glimpse of Nnamdi, but he was not there either. He had abandoned her. The king wanted to believe Ezinne, but the evidence was against her. He thought of a way to punish her, to help her learn a lesson. So, he declared that Ezinne's punishment would be public shaming. The guards would take her around the village, and the people would shame her, followed by a year of hard labor in the palace. Ezinne was taken around the village. The villagers followed behind, shaming her. Some of the villagers who knew Nne Ugo could not believe Ezinne was a petty thief. They knew she borrowed a lot, so they thought it was a possibility. Ezinne had never been so embarrassed in her entire life. To think that Njideka, her best friend, could do that to her was the part that killed her the most. And Nnamdi, who had known her for the past 9 years, how can he believe so easily that she was a thief? Her heart was broken beyond repairs. She tried to cry, but the tears did not come. She lifted her head and held it up. No one believed her innocence, but God knew the truth. So she would hold her head in pride, never in shame. By the evening, the guards had taken her round the village. When she got home, she went inside and laid on her bed, and only then did the tears start flowing. She cried herself to sleep. The next morning, the king's guards were at her doorstep, requesting her presence at the palace. She got dressed, took the stolen dress, and went with them. On their way, she begged the guests to allow her stop at Njideka's compound. When they got there, she knocked at the door. Njideka's mother came to answer the door. Ezinne greeted her and asked to see Njideka, but her mother asked her what she wanted. She said, I came to return the dress I borrowed from your daughter. Our agreement was that I would return the dress after the wedding. She lifted her right arm, giving the dress to Njideka's mother, but the woman did not take the dress. She just asked Ezinne to leave and never return. Ezinne, sensing that Mama Njideka was never going to accept that she had borrowed her daughter's dress, said, Njideka, I know you can hear me. I have come to return the dress I borrowed from you. She dropped the dress on the ground and left. The guards turned and followed her. She started working at the palace as one of the palace maids. She was diligent with her job and she found favor with the king and queen. 6 months after she started working at the palace, the king and queen asked to speak with her. She told them her story, how she had come to live with her grandmother in Anyoma. The king and queen felt very sad for Ezinne. Would you like to go back to school? Asked the queen. Nay, I left school when I was 8 years old. I am 17 years now. Where do I start from? You can always go back to school, said the king. What can be more embarrassing for you after the shaming we put you through here in Anyoma? The guards told us what happened, how you returned the borrowed dress to Njideka. Do not worry, my daughter. In due season, Njideka and her parents would face the repercussion. Until then, what do you intend to do? You are a bright young girl, and you cannot end up in this village. The queen agreed. Isn't it thought for a while? Then she said, I love dressmaking. I would love to learn how to sew. She said that with a big smile on her face. The king and queen were so glad to see her happy again. The king made arrangements for Ezinne to travel to Enugu. She will live with the king's younger sister while she underwent her training. 1 whole year had passed with Ezinne serving the king and queen, and her journey to Enugu was around the corner. She sat down one day, trying to recall what her life had been like the past 9 years. She was 8 years old when her parents died. Her uncle had taken everything and abandoned her and Nneugo to fate. How can a human being, a blood relative, be so wicked? The king and queen had promised to give her support whenever she was ready to take actions against her uncle. But until then, she must build a legacy for herself. There was a knock at the door, interrupting her thoughts. Ezinne went to see who it was. To her amazement, it was Njideka. She stood there for what seemed like eternity, staring at her. Njideka broke the silence. My parents sent me away to Onitsha after the incident. I returned last night. These past 12 months have been the worst days of my life. I haven't been able to sleep with peace on my mind. I have come to beg for your forgiveness. Please, Ezinne, find it in your heart to forgive me. I didn't know how to confess to the fact that I stole that dress. My parents would have killed me. They knew about my habit of stealing, and they were doing their best to control it. For a while, I thought I had stopped, until that day at the market when I saw the dress at Mama Didi's shop and I could not control my hands. Can you control your hands now? Izine interrupted her speech. She nodded a yes. Good for you, Izine exclaimed. Congratulations! Now leave my house, she ordered. Izine, please. I deserve whatever treatment or punishment you give me. But please, forgive me, she pleaded. Ezine looked at her for a while, then smiled and said, I have forgiven you a long time ago, Njideka. If not, God would not have blessed me the way that He has. But I want you to do something for me. You have to go round the village, from one house to another, to right the wrong. Confess to everyone that you borrowed me a stolen dress. Can you do that? Njideka looked at Ezine in disbelief. I can't do that, Ezine. Bikonu, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Then we have nothing in common anymore, Njideka. She closed her door to her friendship and friend of nearly a decade. She had learnt her lessons the hard way. Never again would she borrow from anyone, and never again would she completely trust anyone in the name of friendship. Her life was filled with bitter lessons, but she has emerged wiser. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. If you enjoyed the story, then please give it a like and leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think and let me also know where you are watching from. I'll see you guys in my next story. Bye bye.